The following program contains graphic race vision that may offend some viewers. Those involved have consented to the vision being shown. However, we would advise viewer discretion.
Ellerslie Racecourse, the scene of so many of our greatest racing moments, with particular view towards our greatest race of all, the premier event for the 3-year-olds, the Derby. Bob Vance won over 800 races worldwide, 23 of those at Group 1 level. But it's fair to say his greatest racing challenge may have come as a father.
Riding the winners, that was the easy part. You know, like, I never had any issue with that, you know. I took it as it came, and the more pressure I got in races, the better I was. And so that was so much easier for me to accept. Watching your daughter rides is a lot more challenging. You know, you have no influence, and if something goes wrong, something goes wrong, and that's what happened.
Sensational,
and they're like, okay, we think you're paralysed. I said, oh, okay, well, just put me down. I don't want to live anymore.
I think before the horses had even gone past the post, I'd already had a text from Bob asking, how is Maya? Crack the good stuff goes into line, and the last one up will be Sensational for Maya Vance. The Team Whelan's Hurdle, race number 2 on the card here. Set to go. Gates open, they're off. A bit of a scraggly old line out of the gates. Prize Lad was very slowly away as they clear the first on the journey, and Sensational takes it up and leads by...
What are your memories of the 16th of September? He was a noted front runner. He was in that position when the fall occurred, and what is your recollection of the race itself up until that point?
So I remember the whole race. He jumped beautifully the whole way, and just coming into the sort of 250 mark, at the 300, the favourite, our Luchador, just came past him, was just going a bit better, and at that point I just thought he'd run second because it was quite tough and would hang on. As he went past me, I was a little bit mindful just into that second to last jump that I had a horse in front of me when I hadn't had a horse in front of me, the whole race. And I just sat quiet on him like I, always do. I didn't haul him back or anything. And he just misjudged it and just took off too early. He took off when our Luchador took off, but he was half a length back, so yeah.
And it bounded to the lead, coming towards the second to last from Sensational. Our Luchador outwins Sensational there. It's our Luchador. Kiddo switched to the inside. In third position then we've got further back I'm Bronson.
And what's your memory of the accident itself, or?
I remember as soon as he took off I knew that I was in trouble, and what can you do? I just held on. But I do remember going down, and I don't remember, being on the ground after that.
As soon as I saw her go and her fall, the way she fell, I knew she was in big trouble.
I think anybody that saw the incident, Greg, would know that it was obviously a very serious incident, and there was a lot of concern immediately. I think before the horses had even gone past the post, I'd already had a text from Bob asking, how is Maya? So once I finished my commitments with radio and with TV, I rang him. And at that stage, she was still on the ground, obviously being attended to by the St John's ambulance personnel. And so I think the fact that I was able to relay to him exactly what was happening from my vantage point up in the commentary box, I think he appreciated that. So in those situations, you're always mindful of not trying to overplay your hand. But the fact that I was talking to Maya's father on the phone, I think it was of comfort to him anyway. And
he said, well, mate, he said, I don't think she's dead. I've seen her move her arm, so that's a good sign. I said, well, that's great.
Yeah. But you knew deep down, didn't you? That...
I knew it could be a wheelchair job. But just the way, in the angle she fell, and the way the horse sort of contacted her as well.
Fortunately, I did see John Otham, the Chief Supplementary Steward there, overlooking and seeing what was happening with Maya while the St John's ambulance personnel attended to her. And I said to Bob, look, I said, I'll hang up, I'll ring you back straight away. I said, I'll ring John Otham, who's there on the spot, and I'll see if we can get some more information. Now, Stipendary stewards in that situation, they are notoriously bad at letting that information out. Completely understandable why they do that. But John was very good. You know, I said, look, I've got Bob Vance on the other line. I said, can you give us exactly what the situation is with Maya? Which he did, which was great. So I said, thank you very much, and I rang Bob back, and that really put Bob's mind at ease. He knew, he understood how serious it was. He saw the fall. So the fact that we were able to update the very latest situation before anybody else knew was of great comfort to him.
I woke up in the ambulance, and they were touching my legs, and they said, can you feel this? And I said, no. And they're like, okay, we think you're paralysed. I said, oh, okay, well, just put me down. I don't want to live anymore. And then I think I went back to sleep, and then I woke up, and I was just in a frantic, oh my God, my dog's in the car. Someone's going to take my dog home. Who's going to take my dog home? Someone's going to let him out. Someone's going to look after him. And so then the Stokes went back, and they told my friend, and she's like, yeah, I'm going to look after the dog.
So your immediate thoughts were about the
yeah,
animals?
but frantic panic.
Yeah.
That my dog wasn't going to get home, and I was like, okay, Tony, who's my friend, I was like, you've got to sleep in my bed, and you've got to sleep with Toro so he doesn't think anything's wrong. She's like, okay.
So yeah, your major concern wasn't about yourself at all?
No, just my dog. Yeah, I love my dog.
What about the process from there? When did you make contact with, I suppose, the authorities, and when did you get the first opportunity to go up to the hospital?
Well, I rang Rotorua Hospital, or actually they got hold of me, and I pleaded with them to please to send her in the Westpac helicopter, because my friend Tony Williams, he had to come by road, and he reckoned that it didn't do his spine any good. So they said they would see what they could do, and they rang me back about half an hour later, and they said, yeah, we've got the Westpac helicopter here. They're going to transport it to Middlemore Hospital.
I don't remember a lot of it. I woke up, I think, 3 days after the accident. Yeah, I only remember, for the first week, I only remember little glimpses of being in hospital. I don't remember much. I think they had me on quite a lot of painkillers, because as well as breaking my back in 7 places, I think there was 6 ribs, but in 12 places, broken, and both my lungs punctured. And yeah, I didn't realise how badly the horse had actually kept flipping, which made it look quite bad as well. But when I slow it down and watch it, it looks to me like I landed on my neck. That's what I thought from. But I mean, lucky I didn't. Otherwise, I'd probably be dead or quadriplegic.
We saw her that night. The Westpac helicopter landed, and she was brought in by an ambulance into Middlemore, and so we saw her straight away. But she was on so many drugs, and we couldn't get much out of her, and they couldn't even operate her on her that night because she was in such a state. So luckily, she was operated on the next day by one of the best surgeons. The surgeon, Dr. Patel, he came out the next day, and we spoke to him, and he said, his operation, he said, was great. He was really happy with the way he stabilised the spine, and it was 7 vertebrae to stabilise. But he said there's damage done to the spinal cord. It was an incomplete injury, but she did have a lot of damage on the left-hand side of the spinal cord, and some bruising, swelling and leakage. He wouldn't say what she would regain. He really couldn't tell you, and they don't really want you to say, oh, you're going to get up and walk, and then you never walk again. So they don't really tell you too much.
I think as soon as I woke up, I just had the attitude that, okay, well, that sucked, but now I just have to do whatever I can to beat it. So yeah.
And tell me about your progress.
Yeah, well, for the first few weeks, nothing moved, and then slowly one leg got better, then got a little bit better, and the other leg still didn't move. So when I went into the spinal rehab unit, I still had nothing at all in my left leg, and very little in my right leg. I could move my foot a little bit, and that was it. And I remember my friends, Tony Moki and Jasmine and Paul Marabelli, they came up once or twice a week, and then they would play games with my foot to try and get it to move, and it was who could get my foot to move, because my left foot, leg wouldn't move at all. And actually Paul Marabelli one day did, and it got it to move, and it just was so slow, but just millimetre by millimetre, I'd improve a centimetre each week, kind of moving it. So yeah, it was a really long process, but.
When Trackside visited the Vance home in Papakura, we were amazed to find Maya back on her feet. We even showed Maya close-up angles of her accident, which until now have never been made public. However, with Maya's consent, we can now show you the angle, which clearly illustrates the severity of her fall.
Oh, that's the best angle. That's so painful, I can't watch that. This is probably where they cut my $1,000 vest.
What do you and Jenny think of your daughter's attitude and how she's handled this whole situation? Because from the outside, it has been nothing short of remarkable.
Oh, well, you know, I couldn't handle it like she does, you know, I definitely couldn't, and she really has. Her attitude has been really good, and that's probably why she's progressed a bit now, and she can, you know, she's getting some little bit of movement. She's still lacking a bit of feeling in her legs, but, you know, it's 3 months, and they say that, you know, the first 6 months is the most critical.
Maya, what's been the toughest part so far in your recovery?
I think, you know, when I went home, it's great to be home, but it's also so frustrating. You can't do the things that you normally used to do, you know, like when I'm here, you know, you can go and have a swim or do whatever you want, and now I'm so limited in what I can do.
So what's the future for Maya Vance? What are you hoping, and is it really short term and build towards an ultimate goal?
Yeah, I'd love to ride again. So, yeah, I think some people laugh at me when I say that, but yeah, I think I will.
I think judging by what you've been able to achieve in the 3 or 4 months since the accident, nobody's ever going to decry you even wanting to do that or challenge you not to be able to do it.
Yeah, yeah. I asked Glenn Brick if Sensational could be my first ride back on the flat, and he said, yep. I said, okay, are you willing to keep him in work till he's 17? He said, yep.
It's that sort of thing that keeps you going though, isn't it? You've got to keep the humour up and keep the right attitude, otherwise, you know, easily to get down, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know, once you get down, you don't improve once you know, have that kind of attitude, so you've just got to have the attitude that you want to beat it and, yeah, improve.
Bob, what about the industry support and not only within New Zealand, but it's come from afar as well?
Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. You know, she's had a lot of support from a lot of people, and there's been some anonymous people that have, you know, that have donated to her and to try and help her out. So, you know, everybody asks me at the races how she's doing, and you know, they're really doing. And in this type of industry, you know, one of them get hurt, and everybody's trying to look after everybody.
After the break, we look back at the career of Bob Vance, the jockey widely recognised as a big race rider.
The Derby's the blue band event for the 3-year-olds every year. Ellersly's our premier track. The cream rises to the top, I suppose you could say, and yeah, it often did with Bob Vance.
Bob, your introduction to racing, well, let's start with early life, because outside of going to the races with your dad, there wasn't any involvement.
No, that's right, Greg. I had nothing to do with horses. I'd never even touched a horse. And it was only because my parents were separated and my father had to look after us kids at the races that I would go to the races, and at Ellerslie especially. And I'd see these jockeys turning up and putting their flash colours on. And I said to my father then, I said, Jesus, Dad, I wouldn't mind having a go at this. He thought it would be a great idea. Mum wasn't so happy with it. She thought it was a bit dangerous, but Dad thought it was really good. So I went from there into Merv Ritchie's stable in the weekends. So Mum would drive me over on a Friday, and I'd work the weekend there. She'd pick me up on a Sunday. And after the first weekend, I went home and I said to my mum, this is it. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. You know, just from one weekend working at the...
You got that bang on?
Yeah, well, lucky I was right.
Yeah, was your dad just a follower of the game, or and that's how you ended up at the races?
Yeah, he was he just liked to go to the races and have a beer, and that's how I got introduced to it.
What about schooling? How did you enjoy school?
Not too good. I was transferred down to Matamata to Bill Ford to start my apprenticeship, and while I was doing my apprenticeship, I was doing my Form 5, my second year at school,
And it was tough. You know, we started at 4:30 in the morning, and then by 9:30 I'd get to go to school, and I'd be always late. I never saw first period, and then we'd go home from school. You know, we'd have to do the horses till 5:30. It was just killed me. It was really, really tough. And in the end, I was only 14, and I was in the same class actually as Mike Moroney. Paul Moroney, sorry. I was same class as Paul Moroney. And I went to the headmaster and I said, I can't do this anymore. I said, you're holding up my career. He says, what are you talking about? I said, I'm going to be a jockey. He said, you'll need an education. And I said, no, I don't need an education. I just need more horses to ride. So I walked out of school at 14, and I was just a bit lucky that things worked out.
Bob, in those early days, was it the horse that attracted you to it, or was it the stable life, and did you enjoy working in the stable?
Yeah, I did. I you know, being a small person, you didn't get recognised for anything, but when you were in a stable environment, you were recognised as a rider, and it was good.
Would you describe yourself as a natural?
Well...
Or did others describe you as a natural?
Well, I suppose so, because I never had any education. You know, Pearl Thorpe, she put me on a lead at Merv Ritchie's and taught me how to trot a horse around, but, you know, I clicked on pretty quick, and, no, I didn't try and model myself on anyone. I just whatever I was whatever I was.
Tell me about your first trial ride. This is a great story.
Yeah. Well, when I left Matamata, I got transferred. I actually got sacked from Matamata. My Bill Ford actually sacked me, and I went home and I thought, nah, this is the finish of it. I'm not going to do any more of this.
What did he say to you as you left?
Well, he sort of said that if something's pointing to the ground, you'll never make a jockey. And I just sort of virtually got thrown out on a Sunday night. And I had to ring my father up, and he came and got me. And I went home, and I was never going to... I went home and I thought, no, I'm not going to do this. It's too tough. And then one of the racecourse detectives, I think it was Norm Souter, come and saw me and said, you've got to give it another chance. And I said, oh, I don't think I could. He said, promise me this, I'll give you a good stable. So then he introduced me to Colin and Alison Gillings, and I went there, and it was great. You know, for once we had a really nice forry that we slept in. It was nice and warm, but they were really nice people, and we used to eat our dinner with them where we didn't before at the other stable. And it was about 4 or 5 months after I was there, I had my first trial ride, and at that time he didn't have a horse actually quiet enough for me to ride in my first trial. So he had a horse called Bruckton, which you've probably heard of. He's won, I think, 2 or 3 Great Northerns. He was about 12 or 13, but he'd been hunting with Colin Gillings' daughter. So he brought him out of retirement and gave him a couple of gallops on the track. And we took him to Ellerslie Trials, and I'll never forget it. Like, there was 14 or 15 runners in the race, and he was actually a maiden it because he'd never won a race on the flat. And he lined up, and Gillo just said to me, just hang on to him, and he'll take you around. And I went, oh, yeah, okay, good. And he did, and he actually ran third. So it was a great start for a youngster.
So at what stage of the year was this? Because we'll get on to your first winning ride. So when did this?
Oh, this would have been about August or September.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you got your opportunity, and it was at carnival time at Ellerslie.
Yeah, I'd had 10 or 9 rides at the races, and I'd run a place on everything. And and I really thought I was going to ride a winner at Dargaville. I'd ridden a horse called Hermitage, run a place on him at Ellerslie, and he went to Dargaville. And I thought, oh, this is going to win. It's going to win. This is going to be my first winner, you know, just a maiden race at Dargaville. And the horse actually ran very ordinary. He ran 5th. He went very ordinary, and I was a little bit despondent. And the next Saturday there was Ellerslie races, and I had a ride. I can't remember the horse I was on, but Colin Gillings had a horse in the Summer Cup called Persian Sun, and it had like 48 kilos. And Danny Southworth was apprentice at the time for Colin Gillings as well. And he couldn't do the weight. And this horse was a hard horse to ride, very hard. I'd never ridden him track work. He pulled hard, and it was a 2,000 metre race. It was a cup race. There was no claim in it. And Gillo was running around the jockey's room trying to find a rider for this horse, and there was only 3 jockeys left, and none of them could ride 48. And I can just remember Norm Holland following him, and I'm following Norm Holland, and he's going, Collie, he says, put the boy on, put him on. And in the end he did. He put me on him, and just so lucky that when he jumped from the gates in the 2,000 metre race in the Cup race at Ellerslie, was the lead up to the Auckland
The
Cup.
Summer Cup, wasn't it? Yeah.
Summer Cup.
Yep.
He never got on the bit. He
Yeah.
just travelled beautiful. I can still remember it, and I was about 3 back the fence, and he was just going really lovely. And turned for home, I could just see this wall of horses, absolute wall of horses. But I had plenty of horse under me, and I just worked my way up from the rail out till I got a gap, and halfway out come this gap. So I just took it in a flash, and I can just remember seeing this green grass and a winning post. It was just green grass and a winning post. I'd never seen it before. And I went over the line riding hands and heels, and I thought I'd won by 6 lengths. But actually, I'd only won by half a length, but it felt like I'd won by 6 lengths. So it was a bit better than winning the maiden race at Dargaville, I promise you.
And standing over the fence, and we've got a shot of this, is your dad.
Yeah, Dad was there.
Proud as punch.
Oh, yeah, and he paid I think paid good money, $30 or $40, and he backed it, and he was over the fence clapping. Yeah, he was the only other happy person on the course with me and him.
But an amazing day, and as I said before, it was carnival time, so a huge crowd.
Oh, it was. Yeah, it was. Just to win your first race at Ellerslie, it's just magnificent.
What did Colin say to you on return?
No, I didn't.
Not much.
No, not much. No, I never got any compliments on any of my rides. He may have shook my hand once in my lifetime, but he made sure nobody saw it.
Every young jockey is looking for a superstar horse, and blow me down if one didn't just come along.
Oh, amazing. Yeah,
Uncle Remus.
To get a horse like him was just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. He was just a gem to ride. He would just do anything. Just anything.
So what do you remember of him in the early stages around the stable?
I remember him as a 2-year-old. I rode him one day coming down the drive, and a gust of wind got him, and he bolted across the road and took a leap at a 7-wire fence, and he just didn't quite make it, and he did a flip as a 2-year-old. So we ruled him out as a jumper then. But he showed a little bit as a 2-year-old. He won 3 races as a 2-year-old, and I was just at the right place at the right time to ride a champion.
And at 3, of course, we saw his champion qualities and some of his great wins.
Oh, like he won every 3-year-old race bar one, and that was probably my only ride it's the only bad ride I reckon I had in my career. What was that in? Great Northern Guineas when he got back, and I thought, he's far up, he'll get up, and the track was a little bit wet too, and he didn't quite get up. So I can honestly say I did ride one bad race.
Talk me through his derby, first of 4 for you, of course, and just how exciting that was.
Oh, it was great. I remember before the race, everybody was looking in the book, before the race, where you draw, where the pace is going to be and that. And I was looking in my book too, but I was just working out how much the winning percentage was going to be after I won it. I was that confident, But after that race, I got beat on him. Gillo had said to me, he said, you ride this horse in front. He's just ride him in front and keep him out of trouble. And which he did from that day on virtually. I rode him in front, and I remember in the Derby, he rode him in front, and he got taken on by about 3 or 4 different horses. And he would run with them, and then they would give up.
Yeah.
And he'd relax again, he'd run with the next one, and they'd give up.
He'd just break their hearts.
He did.
Yeah.
And then he lined up, I think it was in the Clifford Plate, on 2 or 3 days later, and he never got out of half pace and won by about 4 lengths. He was a superstar.
So you won about 13, 14 on him?
Yeah, I won. Yeah,
And you won the Guineas at Riccarton?
Yep. He beat a horse called Bralis, and Bralis led actually. We thought Bralis would lead, and he was about 2.5 lengths behind him, turning for home. But I always knew he was going to get him. He was always going to get up and win. And it just took the length of the straight of Riccarton to do it, but he did, and he got up, and that's what a champion he was.
The New Zealand Derby's been a great race for you. Uncle Remus obviously winning it, enormous at that stage of your career, but you've won 3 others. Isle of Man, I'm Henry, and we'll talk more about the Phantom Chance and what he did for your career, but at that stage you held the record that Vinnie Colgan sort of superseded you now, but...
He's made me look very ordinary now. I thought I was looking pretty good on 4, but he's got 6 though.
Yeah. But the race itself, it's still New Zealand's number 1 race, isn't it?
It is New Zealand's number 1 race because it's set weights for the 3-year-old. It's at the 1.5 miles. It is the blue ribbon event, and it's just a great race to win. And especially at Ellerslie, it's it's a tricky race, you know. You've got your uphill after the winning post, you've got your downhill coming into the back straight, and you have another uphill. It's not the easiest course. You never ever seldom ever see an unlucky horse in the Derby.
So Uncle Remus comes along and I don't know, you're possibly thinking, I might not ride one as good as him or maybe even better. And then this colt by £1 sterling turns up, called McGinty. First impressions of him?
Well, I didn't even want to ride him in his first start, actually. Jill had asked me to ride him, and Craig Cossell had been riding him work, and I'd been riding another horse called Holeproof, and they'd been working together. And I said, oh, look, put Cossell on the horse, you know. He'd been riding at work, and Holeproof had actually been working better than McGinty. So then Keith Hobb turned up about an hour later with a pitchfork and started chasing me around the stable. He says, you're riding my horse, aren't you? And I said, oh, okay, well, because he threatened me with a pitchfork. So I rode him in his first start, and he duly won easy. Yeah.
He won his first 5, I think, didn't he?
He won his first 5 2-year-old races, yeah. And then after that, he was taken to Sydney.
Why was he so good early on? What was about his ability that made him better than the rest?
He could fly the gates, absolutely fly the gates, and he put himself in the trail, and then he would just drop the bit and fall asleep. And he'd just be asleep in the race the whole way. And the moment you moved your little finger, he was gone. He was up and away. He was like at a mile and 2,000 metres on a fern track. There wasn't a horse in the world that could have beat him on grass. He was just, you know, he ran 132.9 in the George Adams when, you know, like he was just a phenomenal horse.
Let's talk about Australia and one of his most famous wins, the Todman Slipper Trial, and he beat the subsequent Slipper winner in Masqué. What are your recollections of the build-up to that race and the race itself?
Well, I remember when we took him over on the Monday, and then we wanted to give him a little bit of a final gallop. So on the Saturday morning, Gillo said to me, he said, just run him up 300 metres down the straight. Just run him up 300, that's all he needs. So I went out there and I ran him up over 300. I've never, ever gone so fast in my life. I came into, and he said, how'd he go? And I said, boss, he never touched the ground. I said, he's flying. And he said, shut up, you mug. He said, somebody might hear you. Yeah, and as it was only a 5-horse field, but, you know, the horse Masqué, like he was five or six in a row he'd won. And it was always the intentions to try and follow him if we could, because I drew inside and he drew out a bit. And we'd made all the arrangements, you know, I'll follow Masqué and I'll get to the outside of him in the straight. And that was all done, all the riding engagement was done. And I'm just walking around the parade rink and Gillo comes out and I thought, oh no, he's not going to change the riding tactics. He said, because Masqué was number 1 and McGinty was number 2. He said, get that horse a bit closer to Masqué and make him look a bit smaller. We'll get another $1 on the dividend. I remember that.
Masqué, and they've raced away from the others. Quigham's getting anxious now on Masqué. The big fellow about a head in front. Mr. McGinty is coming at him again. Masqué, the leader, he's got to pull the whip on the odds on top. Mr. McGinty is lunging at Masqué. Masqué and Mr. McGinty. Mr. McGinty got there. Mr. McGinty on the line.
You upset the punters that day because Masqué was long odds on, and as I said before, he went on and won the Slipper. But he didn't go to the Slipper, McGinty, no. But there was good reason for that.
Yeah, he'd broken his cannon bone, a slice of his cannon bone had been broken off and was floating, so he had to be screwed, had to be screwed up. And I remember that night, you know, the vet come over to the stable and he was lying in the yard. He was sweating a bit because he was in a bit of pain. And he said, I said to him afterwards, I said, will he race again? He shook his head and he said, no, he won't race again. I couldn't believe it. You know, I sat down, I cried.
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe it. He'd never race again. And then, you know, he did, you know, he came back.
All right, so how long did he have off?
Oh, he was off for about 6 months and they come back in the Lance O'Sullivan rode him in the railway.
That was behind So Dandy.
Yeah, that was his first start back.
Yep.
And he ran a good race. He ran 6th. He was a bit unlucky, actually.
Yeah. Were you out at that stage?
Oh, it was a handicap race. I couldn't have ridden the weight.
Right.
It was down in the weights, but...
Yep.
Then I rode him, I think, in this 1,400 metre race at Wellington, and he won that.
He sort of won 3 or 4 in a row after that, didn't he?
Yeah, and then he went over for the Cox Plate.
Yeah, so the old McGint was back. You felt that...
Oh, yeah. He was a great...
He hadn't lost...
Nothing.
No.
No, he'd actually got better, and yeah, no, he when I rode him in the Cox Plate, I'd never ridden Moonee Valley.
Yeah.
Never. Most of the race courses I rode McGinty on, I'd never actually ridden on them, so it was Moonee Valley was a
How did
challenge.
you prepare for that? Because it's the most unique race course probably in Australasia.
Yeah, that in Caulfield, but Moonee Valley, what we did the day before, Keith Hobb and Gillo, we walked once around the track, and it was raining a bit too, and he was a firm track horse, and I'm going, oh, it's going to be wet tomorrow, and Hobby saying, oh, it'll fine up, but it didn't. And I walked once around the track, but when it came race day and you're 2 metres in the air doing 65 kilometres an hour, you didn't recognise any of it.
No. And a huge crowd and a huge occasion.
Yeah, it was. But he ran into a horse called Strawberry Road. It was a wet track. But he managed to run third on it, so it was a good run.
Yeah. What about his Canterbury Guineas performance?
Oh, well, we'd been warned that the jockeys were after me. That it was going to be a rough race, and even before I went in there, John Schreck took me in the room and he said, "You're aware that these jockeys are,
they're out for you.
They're pretty tough on you around this Canterbury track,
Yep.
I'd never ridden Canterbury either, but it was a little bit like Thames. And first thing I did was I thought, well, I'll deal to them a bit first, and don't let them do it to me. And Gillo had said to me, oh, don't go inside a horse. But anyway, at the top of the straight, I decided to go inside a horse. I thought he couldn't be right every time. But he was. He was right. They went to slam me and slam the gap, and I just managed to pull to the outside before it. And he got up and beat Velosa, I think it was. Peter Cook said to me when I was pulling up, he said, that'll be the last race you'll be winning in Sydney.
Right. Yeah. And that's the way it was back then.
Yeah. It was the last
They
race.
were tough days, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yep. And he got beaten by Strawberry Road in the
Rosehill Guineas.
Rosehill Guineas, didn't he? He finished second.
Yeah, he ran second. The track was a little bit off for that day too.
Having Keith Hobb involved with McGinty, as he called him, must have made it even more special. Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah, definitely. It was like a comedian show whenever he'd come on tour with us. But they actually, because him and Jack Mudford were very good friends, and he was the starter at Ellerslie. And one of the trainers put a complaint in that Jack Mudford was giving McGinty a head start in the 2-year-old races. But I'd said, and it got thrown out, but I did say to Hobby, I said, at Ellerslie they've got inside speakers that go across the track, and I said, it's one of not many tracks you can hear the commentary, but at Ellerslie for the first half of the straight you could hear it.
Right.
And I said to him, it'd be pretty handy to know when you're in front how far in front you were and if there was anything coming. And he said, okay, old son, I'll fix that. So he used to give me a little bit of a commentary.
Is he the fastest horse you've ever ridden?
Diamond Lover was pretty fast.
Yep.
I was lucky to actually ride Diamond Lover. Diamond Lover had turned up with another horse called Street Dancer. Yep. And me and Grant Cooksley were stable riders. I was obviously number 1, Cookie was number 2. And he was riding the black horse, which was Diamond Lover, and I was riding Street Dancer, the bay horse. And he thought, the only way I'm going to get on a good horse here is not show it up in the track gallop. So he would be pulling the horse up in the track gallops on me. So anyway, when we went to go to the trials, they were in the same heat. But good old Gillo, he mixed the names up when he got the horse from Patrick Hogan. He mixed them up. He had the names around the wrong way. So when he went to put the saddles on, Patrick was there and said, no, that one is Diamond Lover and that one's Street Dancer. So he changed the saddles over. So me and Cookie come out in this barrier trial to ride it, and Cookie's got his saddle on the bay one. He says, I'm not riding that, I want to ride the black one. And he didn't. I rode
the cat
it.
out of the bag by that stage. Yeah.
So anyway, I won by about 5 lengths on her, and I pulled up to Cookie and I said, she's my ride now.
Yeah.
But he ended up back on her because
Yep.
the weights got up and he won a railway on her, and so he got back on her.
So you reckon she might have been
She was
that
fast.
Yeah.
She was fast.
Rides in the Melbourne Cup?
Yeah. I've had 4 rides in the Melbourne Cup. And a very famous ride in the Melbourne Cup, but
Tell me about that.
it is a story.
Yeah,
it is a story. It was in '93, and I'd just won the Cox Plate, and Gay Waterhouse didn't have a rider for Te Akau Nick in the Melbourne Cup, and he'd won the Metropolitan, but he'd gone a couple of very ordinary races, 3 ordinary races, and no jockeys were around to ride him, so I filled in a very strict criteria. I was the last rider in Victoria without a rider in the Melbourne Cup. That's how I got the ride. But it was 160 to 1, and he really had no chance. So when they did ask me to ride the horse, I said, "Oh yeah, I'm here anyway. I'll ride him." And I thought, well, you know, the Melbourne Cup it's just a great race to ride around, and you know, and that's all I was going to be doing, you know. So on the day of the races, I'm pretty casual about it. I'm 160. I was an equal rank outsider. I thought, oh, this will be a nice ride round. And I come out into the parade rink there, and Waterhouse was there, and David Ellis, the owner. And he'd drawn quite wide in the race. And she said to me actually, you know, we'd like the horse up handy, one back, one out. I said, Gay, not a problem. I'll do that. I'm 160 to 1. I'll just
get there.
I'll just use them up to get there, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was all cool. But the thing is, before the Melbourne Cup, it's always like you stand there for 10 minutes because of the parading and that. And around the corner, Tommy Smith walked, Gay's father, and he come round, and Gay said, "And what do you think, Dad?" Well, that was it. He come over to me, and if you know Tommy Smith's voice, he's a bit of a high screeching voice. He grabs hold of my colours, and he starts shaking me. He says, son, you know this is the Melbourne Cup, son. He says, if you're caught on the inside at the 800, they'll shuffle you back. He said, no, okay, come round quick. He says, don't leave your run too late. Well, he's got me in a muck lather. I'm on 160 to 1 shot. Yeah. I'm in a muck lather. So anyway, I get down to the start, and I'm walking around the start, and I'm thinking, boy, that just reason Malcolm Johnson, when rode Kingston Towns, they would have been the exact instructions that he would have got.
Yeah.
He just repeated the same instructions, you know. So anyway, we line up, and I drew one from the outside, and I was going for me 1-1 posse, and I happened to be, the crowd's roaring, and I'm about a furlong from the winning post with a round to go, and I'm 5 wide, and I can't find any cover. And the crowd's screaming, and I reckon I can hear some squaw, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
So this is it, I'm going to go. I'm going to go to the front. Yeah. So just before the winning post, I let him slide through to the front. And I got to the front just before the corner, and I went round the corner, and it was just deathly quiet, absolutely quiet. You know, just it was like I'd been galloping on a Sunday morning at 6 o'clock at Flemington, you know. The horse were back behind me, they weren't pestering me. They knew I was the rank outsider, so that they said, oh, we'll let him go, you know. So this is good, but you don't get too many chances of leading a Melbourne Cup. But what pace you meant to set, you know, you don't get many chances. So I thought I've got to make a plan. You know, I'm in front, I've got to make some plan. So I only had about 10 seconds to think of a plan. So I thought, well, when I get to the crossing, they used to have a crossing at the 800 metre mark. When I get to the crossing, I'm going to take off on the 800 metre mark, and I'm going to be first one into the straight for the Melbourne Cup in '93. So when my daughter's old enough, because she was at the races with Jenny, I'm going to show her how Dad led the Melbourne Cup into the straight, and I thought, that'll be it.
That'll do it.
That'll be it. Well, I did that. I took off at the 800, and I led him into the straight in the Melbourne Cup, and I got to the top of the straight, and I went for him a bit, and I got to about the 400 metre mark, and I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't hear any horses behind me, and I'm just saying to myself, this can't win the Melbourne Cup. This can't win the Melbourne Cup. So I get to the 300. I still haven't heard anything, because normally you can hear the horses coming and the post coming towards you, and you can judge whether you're going to win. I said, I'm going, this can't win the Melbourne Cup. Anyway, I got to the 200, and I could just see in the corner of my eye, I saw the yellow colours, you know, well, really out wide, which was vintage crop.
Yeah.
And he collared me about the last 100 metres. He collared me, and I managed to just fall over the line for second. And I go over the line, and I'm thinking, no. The only thing I want to do is never to run second in a Melbourne Cup, because, you know, like Noel Harris did. But and you'd be thinking about, how I could have won it, but I had no chance to win it. Had no chance of winning it. And then when they put 20,000 in my bank account the next day, I thought, well, running second was okay.
That's not too bad.
It was okay.
Yeah.
And I come back to the birdcage, and Gay, she'd never had a runner in the Melbourne Cup by then. And she was jumping up and down. Yeah. I said, Gay, we didn't win. She says, I know, but isn't it exciting?
Yeah. Yeah, and you didn't see Dad after that?
No, never saw him.
No sign of him? No.
Actually, to be fair, I think I rode quite a good race on him.
The 93 Carnival was a pretty special one then, and it was special because you got yourself a Cox Plate, but again, the Phantom Chance turns up 10 years after McGinty or thereabouts.
Yeah.
You must have been pinching yourself, thinking, how have I got one like this again?
Well, I just come back from Macau and I fluked the ride on him because I think Shane Udy had been riding him and he got suspended.
He'd won his first 2 or 3 on him or something like that. I think you got on him at about his 5th start.
Yeah. And I just fluked the ride on him because he was suspended. But to be fair, I think Gillo was quite happy for me to ride him, and so he won. I think I won the Avondale Guineas on him, and after that I was sort of on him. I was on him all the time.
Yeah, you won the Derby trial and the Avondale Guineas, and then obviously into the Derby. You'd had success in the race, clearly, so where were the confidence levels with this guy?
Yeah, good. No, I knew he was a tough horse, but he didn't have the, he probably didn't have the brilliance of the other 2 horses, but he was tough. And to be fair, I've ridden at Ellerslie for 20 years or something. I've never ever been headed and then got back up and won a race, never in my life. And when Captive Edition went past me with Walshy on halfway down and put a neck on me, I thought, I'm gone here.
The grey horse, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
I can't win this.
Yeah.
And he just kept fighting and fighting and fighting. And in the end, the last 2 strides, he got him.
Was that his greatest attribute, his sheer will to win?
Yeah, he was so tough. He was a workman horse. He was a really workman horse.
He came back after that. What did you make of his form in the latter part of his 3-year-old and then into his 4-year-old?
It was good. His form was good. His preparation for the Cox Plate was absolutely perfect. I've never seen I sometimes refer back to what Gillo did with that horse to win the Cox Plate, because he did miss one race. He missed the Underwood Stakes because he had a little bit of filling in his leg. But he said that October 23rd, he was going to be at his peak, and he was. And he worked his races up, so at that particular day, he was at his peak.
So he went to Hawke's Bay, and then he went to the Turnbull.
Yeah.
And he won the Turnbull.
Won the Turnbull, yeah.
And then he got beaten, I think.
In the Caulfield Stakes.
Yep.
Which was
Naturalism. He won it. Yep.
But I really felt that I should have won. I just thought, I came in and I got beaten nose to nose, and I just thought to myself, Caulfield's a tricky track. He didn't quite make the corner at the top, and I really felt to myself that he should have really won the lead up to the Cox Plate. So I was so confident for the Cox, for riding him in the Cox Plate, that we took him to the gallops on the Tuesday, and we had nothing to gallop with. But David Hayes had a European horse in the Cup. He had no form, and so we used him as a gallop. And the Phantom Chance was a terrible track worker, absolutely terrible. So we went a mile together, and this day he actually worked better than the David Hayes horse, and I couldn't believe it. He actually worked better than him. And I said to Michael Clark when I pulled up, I said, what is that horse? He said, he's a European import for the Cox Plate, for the Melbourne Cup, but he's got no form. But I tell you something, we've got 150 horses in work down at Lindsay Park. He beats them all. Right. And I thought, wow, this, and when he said that, I was very confident going into the Cox Plate.
Talk me through the race and how it panned out.
Well, before the race, I was that confident on the Friday, I decided to go get a haircut because I wanted to look good in the photo. So I went up to...
I've heard about this, yep, carry on.
So I went up to the Ballarat Barber and I walked in there, and the first thing I saw was Kingston Town and Malcolm Johnson and another Gunson or something. And you knew he was a racing guy. And I said, I need a Cox Plate haircut. He said, why? So I'm riding in tomorrow. Oh, he started talking away and he gave me a haircut. So I went to pay him. And he said, no, wouldn't take the money. No, I won't take the money. I said, I'll tell you what. I said, I'll give you a victory salute when I win the Cox Plate, and I'll come down here on the following week and I'll sign it for you. He said, really? I said, yeah. So as it turns out, like in the straight, when he got to the front, I'd actually nearly forgot about it. I nearly forgot about it, and just a few strides out, the Ballarat Barber. I'd better give the old victory salute. So right on the line, it was right on the line. It wasn't even before it. I'd give him the old victory salute. So that was all good. After the last race, I'm sitting in the jockey's room, and I hear this speaker going, Jockey Vance, please come to the inquiry room. I thought, Jesus, these blokes are good blokes. They're going to come in here and just congratulate me on a good ride in the Cox Plate. So I go in there, and this Des Gleeson's sitting there, and you know what he looks like. He's quite pale, and he's got his black suit on, and there's 5 others that look like undertakers and all got their hats there. And they said to me, Jockey Vance, we observed you right on the winning post doing a victory salute. Oh, no, I forgot about it. I said, no, sir, not quite like that. I didn't want it, like it was a $200 fine, but I was trying to defend myself. I said, well, you know I'm right-handed, and I was using the stick in my right hand, and you wouldn't believe it. Just before the winning post, I said, right here, just here, I started to get cramp. So I just stretched it out to get rid of the cramp. So these 6 guys, they just started laughing.
They would never bar that.
They were laughing. They thought it was a great... No one's ever defended a salute ever. They laughed, and he just turned back to me deskly, and he says, when you put your hand in your pocket and get that $200 out, don't think you're going to get any cramp.
You mentioned before about Macau and meeting Jenny Moller, as she was back then.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your riding overseas and how successful you were. What was the difference between Hong Kong and Macau?
Oh,
chalk and cheese?
One has a whole lot of money and one doesn't.
One doesn't.
One doesn't have much.
Yeah.
But it was fun. And I got to meet my wife there, which was a bonus.
Yep.
But no, they're just totally different.
So tell me, how did you court her? How did that come about? Because she was a pretty successful rider herself.
Yeah, she was. And that's how she got the invite to come to ride in Macau. She'd been champion apprentice or something in Sweden, and she won the Swedish Oaks actually, and a Danish Oaks, and that's how she got to...
So she was a Group 1 performer?
Yeah, in Sweden, Group 1, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she rode a Group 1 winner here.
Beowulf, yep.
Yeah, Beowulf won the Avondale Guineas.
Yeah.
Avondale Cup. Race that I couldn't win.
She ever used that against you? She's got one up.
Yeah. But no, we met in Macau, and we just hit it off from there, and you know, we both got the same interests, you know, being jockeys and horses, and so it was pretty easy.
Jenny, tell me about your success back in Sweden and some of the good races that you did win.
Yeah, it was quite funny because the trainer I was apprenticed to had quite a big stable and quite a few good horses, and he had 2 really good stable jockeys, male jockeys, and he had a tiny grey filly that came in to be broken in, and I rode her, and I had just started off then, and when she went to race, the other guys had other rides, and she was tiny, she was really not very big at all, so they let me ride her, and she won, and she actually, and I won 13 races on her. She won the Oaks, she won the 1,000 Guineas, and she won 2 or 3 other group races in Sweden.
What was her name?
Yolland.
Yolland, okay.
Yeah.
How do you spell that?
It's hard for me to spell in English.
In English?
Yeah, Gyllen.
Okay.
Gyllen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was kind of, she was the reason why I got selected for the Long John Apprenticeship, and you know, and actually the guy that selected the jockeys from Macau, he saw me ride her as well, so that was sort of why I got selected to go to Macau.
It just shows you never know where a good horse is going to come from or where it might take you.
No, and I was really grateful because once she started winning, the trainer was decent enough to keep me on, even though the other 2 jockeys really wanted to ride her, but he really stood up for me. And I actually got selected to go, they had something called the Long John European Championship. It was like a tour where you went through all the countries in Europe and rode together.
Yeah.
And I was the only girl. This was 1985, I think.
Yep.
I was the only girl, and I won it.
Shit, really?
Yeah. First prize was actually go to Australia to work for George Hanlon.
Yep.
Yeah, so I went there for 6 weeks.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I won my first ride for him too.
Oh, excellent.
It was funny because I was at the airport and he was going to pick me up.
Yep.
But I don't think he understood that I was a girl because he hated girls. He never put a girl on. and then I was the only one left there and I had to ask him because he was the only one left there too. I said, Mr. Hanlon? He said, yeah. He was grumpy. He wasn't very nice, but he had to give me some rides. And then I won my first ride for him, and it wasn't too bad after that. But
Right, yeah.
Where
was that at?
Geelong.
Jenny comes back here with you, and I think from looking back at the records, her first ride was a winning one here. That was a pretty good start by the name of Flashing Willow. There you go.
Yeah, actually, I'd ridden it at the trials.
Oh, so you set it up?
I rode it at the trials on a wet track and give it a nice easy run. And then I couldn't do the weight on it, so Jenny rode it and it won and paid a good divvy, actually.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah.
And you mentioned before, got the Group 1 Avondale Cup with Beowulf, and that must have been an enormous occasion for her.
Yeah, well, she had to lose a bit of weight too. Like I think it had 47.5 kilos, so she had a couple of kilos to take off. And actually, Tony Williams was the ex-jockey. He was the one that said you should ride this horse. He would be very hard to beat, and as it turned out, it did.
Wedding bells with Jenny, and then ultimately the birth of your daughter.
Yeah.
A couple of special occasions.
Yeah, it was good. We got married in Sweden, and Maya was born in Sweden. So yeah, no, it was all good. It was all in Swedish, but they say I did get married.
Now, there's a significant part to this wedding that I have been given a little bit of a heads up on. There was a bloke who sung there that had reasonable ability.
Yeah, well, they turned $1 billion down to do a world tour, but he turned up at our wedding and sang for us, even though, Benny from ABBA,
Yep.
even though it was a Swedish folk songs, it wasn't any ABBA songs, but he was still there singing.
He was there.
Yeah, he was there.
Have you rolled that one out a couple of times? Because
Yeah.
not many people would have had someone that famous come and sing for them
No,
at
you
their
don't
wedding.
get that many famous singers come to your wedding, do you?
Do you remember when you made the decision to call it quits, riding-wise? Yep.
I remember I had 6 rides, I think, at a meeting, and I had my sauna out there, and my scales in the bathroom, and I come out of the sauna, went on the scales, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do the weight. I had 6 rides, couldn't do it. I remember I came back out here, and I sat on the ground here, and I just put my head down, and I said, "That's it. I can't do it." It wasn't so. I just couldn't disappoint people so much. I just couldn't. It was just a disappointment of not being able to ride the horses. And I said, "No, I can't do it to them. I can't do it anymore."
So did you go straight into working for Jenny, I suppose, for want of a better term?
Oh, yeah, I was the star.
You were it.
I was the star.
And that's been pretty much all the way through, hasn't it? You guys are still riding work now, so yeah.
But we got into partnership about 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
We went into partnership.
Jenny had the licence initially, and I know in the last 3 or 4 seasons you've been in partnership, and your strike rate's pretty impressive. Let's not understate that.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was better when Jenny was training. We actually were strike rate champions for the season one year throughout New Zealand. But yeah, we don't have a lot of horses, and we don't persevere with the slow ones too long. So strike rate's pretty good.
What about other interests? You play a bit of golf?
Yeah,
Yep.
golf and write computer programs.
Okay.
Yeah, I've developed a software system for stables and studs. It's been a passion of mine. I don't really make any money out of it, but I sell it to a lot of the stables and studs.
Where does that come from? This is a bloke who left school at 14.
Yeah, I know. I just self-taught myself on the computer. I just self-taught to write in this language, and it's been really good. And I think I've been doing it 15 years, and every year I get it better and better and better. So
how do you keep evolving with that? Because that staggers me.
Well, people complain about something. They might say, "Oh, your program can't do this or it can't do that."
Right.
So then I go, "Do it."
Yeah.
Because I got it in so many stables and studs that they say, "Oh, we need this, we need that." So I go write the program for it and combine it in, and then I just update their software.
And it sounds to me like you do it matter-of-factly, like you're not out there marketing yourself saying, do this, or, this is a great program, because I'd never heard of you doing that before.
No, it's word of mouth, and would be at least in 25 studs and stables. And I actually just had a phone call last week for somebody else wanting to buy it.
So let's back the truck up here a little bit. You don't just start writing computer programs. What 14 or 15 years ago you just sat there and went, oh, I might have a go at this.
Well, I virtually did. I just got on the computer and I knew Microsoft Access was the platform that I needed, but I needed to write the codes for it. So I studied the writing of the SQLs for it to operate, the operating system. And I persevered with it, and I'd get help. I'd ask for help on.
So you hadn't done a course or anything like that?
Nothing,
That wouldn't be your go, I'm picking.
No, I just dived straight into it.
Yep.
But I ask for a bit of help every so often. If I get stuck with something, and there's people on the web that can help you. But
yep.
It's been really good.
What do you see the future, Bob? What does Bob Vance want to do for the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, it's been a dream for me. Like I left home at 13 and came into this industry with a dream, and it burst like into reality for me. Whatever ever happens from here on is just a bonus. I've just had such a good run with horses, and yeah, it's been really good.
No regrets?
Not one. No. Oh, maybe when I rode Uncle Remus in the Great Northern Guineas, I probably could have been a little bit handier on him. But no.